everyone, this is me again, Marcia Silva, mom of two real life. I just want to do this video because I was actually getting ready to go on a bike ride, and just before I was hanging some clothes, as you do, and then my brain just started going over wire, and I was like, oh my god, I need to put this on a video before these ideas go away. And I just realized as I was having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday that hopefully this can be quite helpful to some of you. And also my opinion about what is happening in the UK recently, you know, with the mini budgets being announced, and then U-turn, and then Chancellor gone, and what is happening with the Prime Minister, and all of this. I like to watch the news. I don't watch everything, but I do watch the news. Most of you probably don't know, but I have a degree in economics, which I study, finished in 2005. I have worked in banking, not really in the economic side of things, more in retail banking. So I did not really apply everything I learned in university. However, it does interest me when I see on the news, like what I learn, and then how complex is actually in real life. So I'm not this kind of person that says the government is rubbish and they don't know what they're doing. I actually understand how difficult it is. And when you study economics, you, coming from a background where my dad is quite socialist, you end up a capitalist somehow, because that's how economics kind of work. But anyway, politics away. Recently, I have been thinking about this, and I think since the pandemic happened, so we have been deprived 2 years of doing what we normally do, you know, going to a restaurant, going to the pub, taking the kids to soft play, doing activities and so on. So we were deprived of all of these. So of course COVID happened and affect economy in a way that we never seen it. Then we had Brexit as well. So what I saw, and I did it myself, and I think that's why we have inflation at the moment. So when COVID happened and the restrictions start lifting, I didn't notice, like, taking the kids to soft play was not £2 anymore, it's £4.50. Having a drink in a pub is not £5, like 8, 9, 10. And at that time, you just pay, you don't care, because you actually just want to enjoy it. And because you haven't done it for 2 years, you are prepared to pay whatever. So I think that in a way has caused inflation more, because people did not care what they were paying because they have been deprived of it for so long. And of course business are trying to recoup loss of earnings for the years of being closure or very little earnings. So that's one thing I think is causing inflation, is supply and demand in that way. So yeah, I mean, a bit basic of economics. If you have a higher demand, the prices will go up. If you have lower supply, the prices will go up. And then, so we have a bit of demand there, in the fact that, yeah, there is a demand and the appetite to pay more to do these things. Because of the supply side, they're trying to recoup losses. They will increase the prices if people are ready to pay. Also, Brexit happened in the meantime, and of course Brexit has caused issues. If you think about it, they want high wage. So they wanted, the reason for Brexit in their ideas was they wanted economy of high wage. So if you are paying more for your waiters, your cleaners, everything, you have to charge more to make your business profitable. So that's obvious. So that will cause inflation on its own, because we are paying more for the labor that is not coming cheap anymore from Europe. So business will have to increase their prices to keep their just to keep their margins. So we have inflation there, and then of course as well the cost of things coming into the UK. And yes, if the pound goes down, it will cost us more to buy the same things coming from abroad. So then you have inflation again. So really what I see now is a government who wants to increase the interest rates because of inflation. But this inflation is not caused because of high demand. It's caused because of all of these. And not to forget, energy costs. So we have the war in Russia, or shall I say, Russia causing the war in Ukraine, making everything more expensive, all the energy costs, oil, petrol, everything going up. So that on its own is going to cause inflation because it costs us more to run everything. So really, inflation is not caused by demand, it's caused by the supply, because whatever to produce the same is costing more. So they have to increase the prices of everything to just keep their margins. So when the government or the Bank of England increases interest rates, so interest rates are used to control inflation, because what they do is they are supposed to take money away from people. So then the demand goes down, so the prices go down. But what the problem we have here is that it's not the demand, it's the supply. The supply is costing more and it's causing inflation. Now, when the government said, so not long ago, they said they're going to decrease the taxes, the 45% was going to be abolished or whatever. That caused a problem in the investor markets, because basically when the government is cutting taxes, it's cutting their revenue. So if it's cutting their revenue, they have to find money somehow to pay for everything else. So they would have to borrow. And when they go in the bond market, if they over borrow, then the markets are thinking, oh, this might be, it's like someone borrowing too much and they cannot afford, they're going to default. So eventually that makes us look UK like a risky place to invest, and then investors don't want to invest in UK, and then makes again the pound go down. That's what we saw happening. Investors don't want to invest because they don't know what's happening with interest rates going up. Like my other half works in investing in the developing big projects, and if they don't know what's happening in the future, if they don't make a plan saying, okay, this is going to cost us X and we're going to make this money, if then the costs are too high and they cannot make a profit, they're going to invest. So it causes, again, I worry about inflation, a recession, because recession is caused by fear. People are like, oh, you know what, I'm not going to go on this holiday because I'm scared. I don't know. I'm not going to go out in this restaurant to eat because I'm scared. I'm going to cut my cleaner because, again, and this will cause a snowball effect that will cause recession. People will lose their jobs, and it's a snowball effect. So I'm scared where we are at the moment, because if the government keeps messing this up, my opinion, they should just shut up, don't do anything, just leave it as it is, leave the taxes as it is, don't increase the bloody interest rates. Interest rates are already too high. 5%, I mean, I was looking at, I worked for 2 major banks before in mortgage, as a mortgage advisor, and just looking at interest rates at the moment, I was pretty shocked how they go from like a 5-year 1 point something to now 5%. It's just massive. That everyone that is doing some calculation can easily in London see their monthly mortgage go up to by £800. £800 is a lot of money. And of course, in the past, because we've been in a very low interest rate, where everyone said, why would I use my money? I am going to borrow as much as I can because interest rates are so low. The problem with that way of thinking is that if interest rates rise suddenly, like they did that, you are in big trouble, because you have so much debt, and then over the sudden, poof, you have to pay so much more. So that's the dangerous approach. So, but what you would learn is that economics is a social science. There are people, there are always different ideas, and when we study economics, is always a reality that we are looking at 2 factors, assuming everything else is the same, but reality is so much more complex than that, and there's so many different factors impacting everything. So it's quite difficult sometimes to say, because the government thought, oh, we're going to decrease the taxes, so what that will do is going to make people more confident and spend more and kind of break this potentially recession. But what it causes is the other issue is in the investment. They worry about how much in debt is the government. So then that's why the Bank of England had to intervene again with what we call it quantitative easing, which is basically printing money to buy those bonds and creating inflation. So there you have the government So you have the Bank of England increasing the interest rates to control inflation when they shouldn't be doing that, because this inflation is not caused by high demand, it's caused by most expensive supply. And then you have quantitative easing, which is printing money and putting more money in the economy and creating inflation, which doesn't make any sense. Like, for my basics of economics, when the government announced that, it's like, what? That doesn't make any sense. And of course, it didn't take very long for them to, make a U-turn completely on that. And now you have the government saying, Jeremy Hunt saying that they're going to increase the taxes. I'm like, are you crazy? You can't increase the tax. People are going to be really tight. We have mortgage rates much higher than they were. So they have their housing costs increasing by 100%. And it's a lot in England, London. Just your housing will cost you a lot of money. You have energy going up by double as well, food going up as well, petrol for your car up as well, and they want to increase the taxes. Are they mad? So they didn't want to create a recession by decreasing the taxes, and now they want to increase the taxes. This is just mind-blowing. I don't know what they're doing. I just wish they shut up and they don't announce anything. Just leave it. Just, for my opinion at the moment, is like, they already increased interest rates when they shouldn't have. The inflation was caused by, the energy that no one's, is the supply that is causing that issue, is the war in Ukraine, which we just have to all live a bit tight. One thing is living tight. Other thing is like, we can't eat because you can't pay the bills, or people will stop going out, and then all this business will go out of business, and that those people will lose their income, and it's just like a really snowball effect. And this is what recession could be. I mean, my opinion is that the rates should not be this high. They should have increased a little bit, because people should be incentivized to save. So one thing I should say, that actually now, if you have some little bit of savings, you can earn some interest. Whereas before it was like, what's the point of having savings? You don't earn interest, but at least you earn some interest. It will give you some incentive to save. The issue is that, of course, inflation does eat on your savings, but I don't agree that because of that reason you don't have savings. You should have. I have a financial advising diploma as well, and I did the job for a while, so it's also recommended to have at least 3 months of your net income in savings for emergencies. This is like, if you lose your job and takes you some time to find another one, you have something there. The fact inflation now is at 10%, and if you are earning interest on your savings of 3%, you are still going to lose around 7% of your savings real value. But nevertheless, having some savings, even if you're not earning enough, of course you can invest it in the stock market, but that's another conversation. And yes, investing for longer term makes sense to be in the stock market, because eventually it should, depending on the time, I guess, if the stock market is doing well, happy days. If you are taking money out when the stock market is not doing well, then it's the other way around. Of course, there's risk to your capital. Now, I also would like to talk about mortgage. There is a lot of people worried about the mortgage, which of course makes sense. And if you are unlucky that your mortgage, if you are going to buy now, it is what it is. The rates are what it is. If you cannot wait, there is a worry. I personally have this worry that if rates continue at this time, if we are looking at what is happening now, and people are not going to be able to afford their houses, if we are going to be like, okay, interest rates are super high, my mortgage has gone up, energy has gone up, food has gone up, like I can't keep this big house and I need to sell. So it could be we are going to see potentially in the next 6 months or a year a lot of houses for sale in UK. And what is that going to do? Too much supply is going to make the prices of the houses go down. You might have negative equity. Oh my God, that's another big problem we could have with these interest rates going up so much. It's just stupid. I can't understand. So what we want to, so I mean, I don't really have advice for you if you should wait or not wait. I mean, if you have to buy, you have to buy, you have to live somewhere. Paying rent is going up like crazy as well in the UK, London. So you have to live somewhere, either you buy or rent. I mean, I've always been a person, you should buy at least. Eventually you're paying towards your house, and eventually you retire, that house is yours and you don't have to pay rent, and you can give something for your children in the future. So I'm always in favor of buying. Now, if your mortgage is coming to renewal, let's say next year or next year, so we say, which is I have a small flat that I let out, which is coming to an end of next year, which makes me very nervous about that, because of course I'll have to review my rate. So I did a 5-year, but that 5-year is coming to an end now, in the end of next year. So I'm hoping there is nothing I can do now. So you have to think, when is your mortgage coming, is the fixed rate you have is going to end in less than 6 months or 6 months. Just have a check, when is your interest rate going to finish. It's very important you have this in mind. Why? Because no one can tell you what is going to happen with interest rates. No one. If you see a mortgage advisor, they don't have a crystal ball. They're not going to say, oh, fix it for this amount or fix it for that amount, because the interest rates are going to up and down. No one knows. And no one can say. They can only kind of have an idea, but even as a professional, you should never say what is your own idea about rates going up or whatever. In my case, I have to be honest, I have no clue. I hope the government stops doing this nonsense and things by in a year time or so, the interest rates are not this high again, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know what's happening to the government. So what is important to have in mind is that if you are looking at your mortgage, so I'm not talking about new mortgage like you buy a new house. I'm talking about you have an existing mortgage and you want to check what to do with your mortgage. So you have 6 months. So if you are doing a remortgage with another lender, so let's say Halifax, and you are going to look at doing a mortgage, let's say Barclays, Santander, example, you can apply for a mortgage with another lender 6 months before your rate is coming to an end. So what that means is that when you have a mortgage offer from another lender, is it for 6 months. So let's say your mortgage is coming to an end of June. So end of June. So from the 1st of January next year, you can submit an application with another lender to, take it, maybe not first, maybe second or third. You can start talking to another lender and potentially submit an application to secure a rate. Now, what happens is, when you have that offer, the offer is normally 6 months from the date you submit the application. So as long as your rate is finishing in that after 6 months, or within that 6 months, within the 6 months, sometimes it could be a day. We have done things like that, working exactly to the day when you can complete the next day. So if you think rates are going to go up, you kind of want to do that as soon as possible. So let's say, if I knew in 6 months my mortgage is coming to an end and I'm worried that the rates are going to increase again, what the government talks, you want to lock whatever the 5% is now. Now, if, let's say, hopefully in the next 3 months or whatever, and then you keep an eye, okay, you have secured a 5%, which is not great, but is better than if the rates go up. But then if you see the news, rates are going, or even check with your lender, because even the lenders could change rates. They tend to respond to whatever the government, whatever announcements. So it's worth checking the rates with your lender, because most lenders, and from the ones I work, they used to have a little fee, like a fee to change the product. So your offer is still the same, you're changing the product, so the rates you have. So if the rates are going down, even though you have that offer for a 5%, if rates were going down, you can go back to that lender and say, I want this 4.5% right now is always according to loan to value, of course, but that's another conversation. So I'm just talking about interest rates now. So you want to go to our lender, to that lender, and say, I want your lower rate, because nothing stops you to go to another lender and get a lower rate. So that lender you are doing your application very happily will, I mean, I will be very surprised if they don't do that, because I work for 2 main banks and they did change the product, even if you had to pay a fee, because I remember being like 150, it's still worth, because you're going to save that money eventually by the saving of that rate during that 2 or 5 year, whatever you fix it for. So it's definitely worth, because I didn't know, but for us mortgage advisors, they are or someone that has done mortgages, it's like really like basic. But if you are not, you know, just talking to a friend and then realize that she didn't know that, it doesn't matter. You could work in finance, you could work in investment bank, but you might not actually know like this, you know, these processes. So I thought I just want to share it, because if there's anything I can help anyone to save, to have a better deal, yeah, keep an eye. When I was a mortgage advisor, I had lots of customers that were keeping an eye on the rates and asked me to change the rates, and of course I did it, and it's good for them that they do that. It's not the bank responsibility to alert existing applications or pipeline that the rates have gone down. Is really the customer needs to do that, because I mean, why would they do that? I mean, the rates are public, so anyone can see it. It's not, it's been hidden. But yeah, there is no like, you know, once an application is done, it's done. We move to the next one. But then yeah, you can do this, and potentially you could save a lot of money. Now, if you are staying with your existing lender, it's normally 3 months from it's only 3 months from the date up until the date your rate is coming to an end, where you can do this rate switch, which is called a rate switch. The difference between a rate switch and a remortgage from another lender is a rate switch does not involve any credit check or any application as such. It should be quite straightforward. You can even do it sometimes online if you don't want advice. And again, the advice is never like, no one has a crystal ball to tell you, oh, the rates are going to up or going to go down. The mortgage advisor has a conversation about, you know, things changing in your life, you know, where you are, what is important to you. That's how the advice is given, not really like a forecast of what's happening to the interest rates. So yeah, the rate switch, you can have it non-advice or advice, but if you kind of know your loan to value, you know normally kind of tells you what is your options based on your loan to value. If you're doing it online, if you see a mortgage advisor, then they will tell you based on this automated valuation. Now, it's another important thing that I didn't know, most people would not know, or it can be a bit tricky. So when a bank does an automated valuation, it's like it's an automated valuation. That means no one actually is going there. So a rate switch is based on that. When you do a remortgage from another lender, can be a bit better in the sense, if you have done, let's say, a loft conversion, that's quite a big structural change, which will increase the value of your property. So if your loan to value, so the loan to value is how much you're borrowing against the value of your property. So automated valuation normally does not know you have done that loft conversion, so it could be actually quite low. And sometimes the rates can be such a big difference from a 60%. Like normally rates tend to be lower at 60%, and then they tend to increase slightly, and sometimes at 85, and then from 85 to 90, because there's much risk, the rates kind of jump quite a lot. I don't know exactly what it is right now. Things change so much all the time. Lending policy changes so much all the time. So you have to look into it at the time and see what are the different options. But if you are doing a rate switch with your lender, they will be basing that whatever the automated valuation is there. If you have done a loft conversion, you're probably going to miss out if your loan to value that you are now. So you might have to dispute that valuation, dispute that loan to value, because if you have done a big structural change like a loft conversion, then they should be able to do a valuation there and then get you a better loan to value, a better rate. Now, if you're doing for an internal a remortgage from another lender, they have automated valuation, but they ask you what is the value of your property. So when you go to discuss your mortgage with another lender, you need to know how much your property is worth. And how do you do this? Like, you go around online and you check a very similar house with you, like yours, and you see what they are selling for. You never underestimate. You ideally overestimate, not underestimate. If you underestimate, the bank, if the valuation is more or less that, they're gonna just be happy. And if you are like saying 62%, and you said an amount that puts you between 60 and 65, but potentially you could miss out, because if your house is actually worth more, you could be on the 60%. So the worst thing that happens is that, imagine you have a house is worth 700, and you say, oh, I think it's worth 650, and then you potentially could be on that loan to value over 60%. What happens is that if you say 700, or even if you say 750, but the automated valuation says 650, for example, what happens is that the lender will send a surveyor to your property and do the correct valuation. Even if you overestimate, they will come back whatever the value they think it is, the fair value, and then that's it, pretty much. Then you will have a fair loan to value, the correct one. If you can't have less than 60%, well, it is what it is. You could try with another lender, but there's no guarantees you could have a better rate or a better loan to value. So there's a lot of research to do before. I mean, it's always better you do some research, you talk to either your mortgage advisor of your bank or a mortgage broker, and you have an idea what different rates are and so on. Look online. So the loan to value is just basically your value of your mortgage divided by the value of your property. So you have 50, 60 and so on, and then you can look at rates accordingly to that. Yeah, I mean, I hope I made this bit clear. I think it was this I want to talk, which is really the mortgage rates and how long before, and you can change the product up until pretty much up until completion. I mean, you don't want to mess with the offer if you are too close to completion. And also, the value of property, what you say. I mean, if you underestimate, there's no benefit to you. But if you overestimate, the worst can happen is the bank says, oh, it's this much, and then you have the fair loan to value. I think it's very important at this moment that we are a bit savvy, especially when the mortgage is the biggest commitment. You have a month. So it's important that you have the right information, you do things at the right time, you're on top of it. And yes, I mean, I hope government will give us a certainty, give us stability, so we know, so it gives confidence, so we know we're not going to spend all our money on the mortgage, all our money in energy, so we have some money to go out to help other business, to buy things, so that we have this certainty and this confidence, so things keep paddling along as they should. And we have a good year ahead of us. That's all I hope for myself, for my children, for everyone. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer if it's something I think I can. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Bye.